Hello, welcome to another episode of Church Talk with me and Jose. We did take a week off due to some personal reasons, but now we're back. Here today with us is Pastor Rolando Carrizales from Resonate Youth, also Mundo de Fe Capel. How are you doing, Pastor?
Doing great, Ethan and Jose. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for accepting. Sorry.
Today I'm excited to be here. Yeah,
that's great.
Very excited.
Yeah, I told Jose, the pastor from Resonate Youth, Rolando, would be really good to come on here, but I don't know. I was
man, he's a man.
I was like, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to pull that off until at least December.
Oh, no,
and then the other day, I was like, I'm gonna text Rolly, and then he's like, sure, when? And so here we are.
I just had to move, some things around and make it happen, and because I love you, man. I had to, move some things around and put them in the back burner and say, Ethan comes first.
Well, thank you for making the adjustment for our podcast.
Welcome, man. You're welcome.
Well, I don't think there's anybody better to talk about this today. Today we're talking about being active. Obviously, Pastor Rolly, do you want to give us a little bit of a biography or anything?
Yes. I'm 47. I'm married to my beautiful wife, La Gringa. We call, she, her Twitter her Twitter and Instagram handle is La Gringa, and beautiful. 23 years of marriage, happily married, and we have two children, Lauren and Lincoln, 18 and 16. And they're both working now, which is great.
19, no?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Lauren, 19. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that help right there. And they're both working now, and and active, ready to go. Get started with school. And I serve under Pastor Tim and Abigail Holland leadership and Mundo de Fe Central in Capel. And we've been there for several years now, right? Since we got there in 1997, 96, 97.
I was actually born in 97.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was born in 01.
When you were born, we were being, we were studying at Mundo de Fe. And it's now Life Church Mundo de Fe because we have services in English and Spanish. And the youth ministry is called Resonate.
I see you're wearing some Resonate merch right now, actually.
That's right.
The back says, "Let your voice be heard."
That's right.
Oh wow.
you gotta drip, man. I'm dripping. I'm dripping. Gotta use the right drip. And it's the R for Resonate and the R for Rolando, and it serves a lot of purposes. Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
Well, it's awesome. Rolando actually and his wife Holly are like uncle and aunt, I guess. Ever since I was little, they like when my family had stuff going on, I was at their house, and they always took care of me. They beat me on
since
behalf
you
of my
were
parents.
since you were in your mother's womb, we remember you.
Yeah, actually, if I smarted off, they sent me to Holly.
Yeah. You asked me, hey, can you teach me how to drive a Standard? And I said,
yeah, Rolly has a standard car.
Yeah,
and I was like,
truck.
he can teach me. A truck,
a mini
truck,
Raptor.
yes. A mini Raptor. A Ford Ranger is
Ford
the new
Ranger,
mini Raptor.
1995, still going strong, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's older than you, man.
Y'all have a YouTube channel with Resonate Youth.
Yes.
And y'all are very active every Wednesday, right?
Yeah, we started
7.
recently, with the pandemic, happening back in March. Our pastor said, let's go off, and do the ministries, specifically the youth ministry, because we couldn't, come together in person, and let's go online. We already had the online services for the church for a while, but now we added the online live stream for Resonate, because we're meeting like many other youth ministries on Wednesdays, and but now that we couldn't meet, we started the Resonate live stream in YouTube. So it's we just started in March or in April, early April. So it's working great. It's a very good way to stay connected and with the youth and still be able to have that to have that community in the youth ministry. So it's going great, and we like it. We love it. We have a lot of different elements. And so we try to involve, some of the leaders and as many youth as we can. So yeah, it's going well. we like it.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. Jose and I, we used to do a Wednesday service pre-COVID, but then school started and we stopped it. And so I think we always had that void of the youth.
It was kind of something we did in the summer.
Oh, okay.
Since
to stay connected
with the youth. Of course, we still had our services on Thursdays and Sundays, but Wednesdays we had youth nights here. We'd have some music for them, and then one of us would preach, or I'd have someone else give a little word or something. Yeah.
No, I think it's very important to have those services, in person. Now, of course, we can't right now, but we're looking forward to when the time that we can do that again. And of course, we're going to be wise and cautious and take all necessary precautions and to be safe. But at the same time, it's important to meet. And I've talked to several youth, already during this time, and that's the one thing when I ask them, hey, what do you miss the most? Either from church or youth ministry or from school. And most of the youth, they say, man, I miss my friends. I miss just getting together with my friends. I'm zoomed out. But they miss it a lot. Yeah, they miss it a lot. I think that's one of the main things they.
I already heard that joke was zoomed out. Well, so before we get into the points, Jose and I launched this podcast about 3-4 weeks ago. Because at first I told Jose we should start a podcast for the youth, and he was like, no. I was like, why? He's like, I don't. He's like, I don't want to do that.
This isn't something that I'm like. It's not that I'm not comfortable doing. I don't mind. It's just.
It just took you out of out of your box, out of the comfort zone.
Yeah. It's not something that I think about doing. It's not something that would call to me.
Yeah.
Right, and then on my end, I listen to 10 hours of podcasts every week. At least I just constantly. In the car, I'm listening to podcasts, so it's kind of like
for you, it's just oozing out of you natural, right? Yeah. It's like, I'm a
I have my own
podcast.
I have my own podcast separately. It can be overwhelming though, but anyway. So we launched this podcast. We talked about dating advice. That was an hour and a half. When we sat down, I was like, we'll be lucky if this is 30 minutes, and then it was an hour and a half. And then the next one, we talked about ambition, and then we had the pastor Courtney come on, and we talked about demons.
Wow.
So we had that was a 2-hour 45-minute recording.
Man.
And either our producers or the software, whatever, we've just forgiven the cause, lost half the recording. So if you're watching and you want to watch that, you can, but it's only the first hour and 10 minutes. But there's still some power in it.
Wow, yeah.
So now we want to have some guests on. I have some more lined up, but getting you on here was amazing. I really didn't think that would be
man. It's my honor. I'm excited and I appreciate the invitation.
Awesome. Well, our first point. Before we get into our points, I want to make this. Before we get into our points, I want to make this point. Getting an energetic church. People go to churches and they're like, "Wow, these people are whatever." But it's because the youth group is active. So when you go to a church with a dead youth group, usually the people are just kind of, and they clap and they're like, ah. But what we're finding is that whenever the youth dance and stuff, it makes their parents like, oh, okay, I need to jump now. They get into it.
Yep.
So here we have going all in for God, which is kind of the point that that you want to talk about. So do you want to kind of guide us into that?
Yeah, I think you're right. When you say that the youth are kind of like the thermostat of the church. When you have an energetic, enthusiastic, high energy church, youth, it's going to have a very tangible effect on the rest of the church. Because naturally the youth, are full of energy, and they're going to transmit or they're going to project that onto everything. So that's why it's important for churches, starting from the senior pastor, the lead pastor, to have a vision for the youth, because some people say, well, they're the church of the future, and I see why they say that. They're really the church of today, because they're in a lot of the aspects of the church. Here you are, you young guys, running this podcast. The people that are, here in the with the equipment and running, in the production, they're young people. So the church really relies a lot in the energy of the youth. And I've always believed that, that hey, that being with youth, it keeps you young. So when you translate that to the church, having youth and having the youth involved and you make a space, a room for the youth, it keeps the church young. It keeps everybody young, and in the generation. So we're not just losing one generation, right? But we keep it going. We keep that legacy going, that continuity in the faith going. So I think it's very important. And starting from the senior leadership, that they have a vision for, let's get our youth engaged in church, in getting connected with God. I think it makes a big difference. It's like the lifeblood of the church. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so we're going to talk more about going all in for God here in a second, but I do want to make this point. When we were making the title, I made it be active to make it like easy. Today we talked about being active, because usually the sad reality is that when you hear like today we talked about going all in for God, it's like, could you be any more basic? So I wanted to kind of get either of your opinions on why this is not a basic topic, and even if it is, it's still very important, and we all tend to skid off of it, especially during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think it's very important and timely, because man, the days are just they just seem like they're all the same, right?
Yeah.
They're like running into each other. I don't even know if it's Saturday or Sunday, because they all feel the same, right?
Me and my sister got in an argument like 2 weeks into COVID about what day it was.
Exactly.
It was like 12:20. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad it's Wednesday because I forgot to do my homework." I'm like, "No, it's Thursday." And she's like, "Well, yeah, now that it's past midnight." And I'm like, "No, now it's Friday." And she's like, "No, it's not." And we started yelling at each other for like 5 minutes. And then she looked at her phone and she was like, "You know what?" And she just went to her room.
Yeah, I mean, that, before we had those like marks, in our week, hey, it's hump day, it's Wednesday, youth day, or, oh, it's Friday, thank God it's Friday, or the weekend, and then Sunday, you had those moments in the week, or those days in the week, that there were definite markers that kind of reset you, in mentally, emotionally, even, the way that you looked at time. But now they're all running into each other. It's like I feel a Saturday. It's like, well, it feels like it's a Sunday, it's a Monday. Where a lot of the times just inside and not doing the same things we used to do. So I think it's important, because we run the risk of just getting into a rut. In many areas, and spiritually speaking, also we can get into a spiritual rut, that we just get stuck. That everything just looks the same, and so that's something that we need to guard against, and
because
be aware.
It's annoying that what you're saying, that it's really easy to get into a rut, because it's also very easy to use this as an advantage to spread the love of God and the word of God. It's very easy in a time where everybody's vulnerable and they're all annoyed with the pandemic.
Yeah.
If you really want to evangelize, now's the time, because people are more open to it than ever before.
Exactly.
But if you allow yourself to get into a rut, then we have a serious problem.
Exactly. So you can get into this rut because there's not a lot of things we're doing like before, but you can feel like, well, today was the same, and kind of get into that mentality that, well, it was boring. But you can also turn this around, like you said, turn or make the most out of the opportunities we have. And nowadays, doing these podcasts, so available now, that the technology and being digital, you can go and reach a lot more people and doing a podcast like this, and not just here in Arlington where we're located, but around the world.
Right, because there's that person that got in the rabbit hole in YouTube. And then they find themselves in our podcast.
Exactly.
When they went in there to look at the review of like the GMC Sierra.
Exactly.
And now here they are watching a church podcast.
Yeah, exactly. They're they're
just
like
scrolling. And when we first told my dad we were going to do a podcast, he's like, "Well, how long is each episode going to be?" I was like, "However long the conversation goes." And he's like, "Really?" And we did the first episode, and he's like, "Does that say an hour and a half?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Who's going to listen to that?"
What else do y'all talk about?
And I told Jose, we'd be lucky if we get 50 views. I'll be happy with it if we get like 50. We got like 600 on the first episode.
Wow, that's great.
So we're very excited about it,
Man,
and
good
we've
job.
been able to maintain it.
Yeah.
So I told my dad, I'm telling you, it's popular. Like I don't know if y'all know Joe Rogan, but his average podcast is like 3.5 hours, and he has 9 million subscribers.
Wow, yeah.
I was like, this day of people zoning out after 30 minutes is over. I was like, people, if they lock in like the first 5 minutes, they're gonna stay until you're done. Because I don't know about y'all, but it's really unsatisfying when I'm like in the middle of a movie or a podcast and I'm really listening, and then I stop and I don't know how it ended. or when you wake up in the middle of a dream and then you never finish the dream and you're like, what?
Well,
Where was that going? It's the same thing
The
now.
same.
You know, it's easy to get to people now because podcasts are very popular.
Mm-hmm. Well, you should have told me that, man, because, you know, you say, hey, let's get more views. All right, let's talk about the end times. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about
Revelation.
dating.
We still can. When we've talked about dating,
We
ambition,
I
we talked
should've
about
come in.
demons. We had the pastora on
Yeah.
to talk about demons.
Man,
And
you
Jose
know,
and I
imagine,
did
you know,
not.
somebody scrolling and like, okay, and then, oh, demons, you know, like.
And so my mom, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. It was an amazing podcast, but
Yes.
she may or may not be behind the camera. But she pulls out this notebook. She's like, well, the brain operates on this many gigahertz, and the phone. And I look at Jose, and we're like, okay, like we did not.
I was
but,
ready
yeah.
to receive whatever
Yeah.
whatever was coming.
But you see now, we're able, and I say as the church, we're able to reach a lot more, you know, now thinking globally than just locally here, you know, in person. And you guys, you know, man, more power to you. You know, continue to do this and reach as many people as possible. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we've covered very complex points about why this is not a basic topic. Jose said something interesting that the more I think about it is more true. We look at big churches like compare, I don't know, Elevation or I don't know, a big church.
Mm-hmm.
Compare it to like El Lugar de Su Presencia in Colombia. Or you compare it to like when Jose goes on trips with us. Jose's been able to go with us to Nicaragua, Dominican, Mexico, consecutively, mission trips. And he has said that, why are the youth so much more energetic over there? And even in big churches, the youth are generally, they just come in like, or you go to like YFN, they walk out completely different than they went in. But over there, it's almost like they go in like that already. They're just, and so I put down USA versus other countries. Do you also see that trend?
I've seen it, but I've also seen, you know, the excitement whenever you tap into the potential and speak into the lives of youth. You know that you can see that happening here. But I get what you're saying, and what I've also seen is that the youth or the Christian, you know, let's talk about the youth in their local church. You know, they may be at a certain level, you know, and then they go to a mission trip, they go to a summer camp, they go to a retreat, they go somewhere else, and they get so excited. And you're like wondering, wow, man, that's great. And then they come back to their local youth ministry or church, and they go back to the same level that they had before, right? So we were talking about this, you know, prior to the podcast, and a lot of the times it's because we get this, we get into the familiarity, you know, so familiar with where we are that we lose the wonder of it. We lose the excitement of it because we're so familiar, right? It's not new anymore. It's not as exciting anymore. And so we get, you know, in this familiar environment. And so we just get like, yeah, you know, this is.
Well, what do you think
normal.
that? I know we're not even halfway through our points, but what do you think the solution to that would be?
Well, the one thing would be to that when we're talking about, you know, being excited, you know, think about how can I be excited even in my own, you know, familiar place, you know, without being fake, without trying to, you know, put on a facade or just a show, without being, you know, trying to manufacture, you know, some emotions. But I want to be real and authentic, but also that I try, you know, hey, I know that this is my usual youth, you know, group or ministry. I come here every Wednesday or whatever day you meet, and I come here on Sundays. This is my church. So kind of get a little complacent, right? So I think one thing would be to be intentional. You know, you have to be intentional, even if you're at the same church, at the same youth ministry, you know, at the same place. That's not the problem. It's you being intentional, because God can speak to you right here where you are, and He can speak to you in a mission trip, you know, in a different country, in a summer, you know, camp, in a retreat. He can speak to you here also, and I think it speaks a lot of very highly, and a lot of a maturity of a believer. Let's talk about youth. When you are intentional in your own place, and you go against that natural tendency of getting familiar with your environment and your place, that you say, you know what, I'm going to be intentional about being there, about participating, engaging, knowing that I I may get complacent or just familiar with where I am, that I'm going to be intentional about seeking God, about being there, right?
Looking deeper than just coming to church every day, and not just because we do come to church every Sunday, right, or every Wednesday, or not all of us do, but when we did, we would come every week, and I feel like the youth. I've been a youth too, I remember getting real comfortable like that, getting kind of bored at the church, but what we miss is coming with the idea that the Lord can do something new every time I come, right? And now that I'm a little older and leading a youth group, when I'm up here playing, sometimes as a musician, I feel it's easy to get complacent with the songs we play, with the people that I look out, or the way that people are reacting to how we're praising God. And it is something that I've had to, to navigate through, to pray about, and try to stay excited, praise as best as I can, play as best as I can. And yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, something that happens is that the level of energy or enthusiasm that you see, that you have around, it can either pull you that way at the same level, or you can fight against it or swim against the current, and say, you know what, I'm not going to let that affect my enthusiasm. I'm going to go and give it more. And sometimes it's a little uncomfortable, because you're like, well, I don't want to look the guy that's the extra. Yeah, you're so extra. Well, so what? Who cares? We're
even
church.
you're that's cringy.
Yeah, that's cringy. He's so extra. Yeah?
Like us saying the word cringe, people are like,
yeah, exactly. Especially me. I'll be like a boomer, right? Come on, boomer. Don't speak Gen Z.
Okay, boomer. See, like never mind. When you said like, what was it? The Zoom joke.
Zoomed out. Yeah. So. You can get, in that, and instead of letting your environment, mold you and pull you to that level, you're going to have to be intentional about, no, hey, I'm going to be excited. I'm going to be, enthusiastic about this. So you have to set the temperature of the room and not let the temperature, pull you or, conform you to that. And that's something. Now, even Jesus had to deal with it, or he went through that. He grew up, in his hometown in Nazareth, and he said it, that when he came back, they didn't even believe in him. That was the one place that the Bible says that he couldn't do any miracles except a few. And it wasn't because he was, that the powers one day, hey, all of a sudden my healing powers didn't work that day, like, hey, I got a faulty, something happened, No, it was because he had the power to do miracles, but it's the lack of faith. That's what the Bible says. And he couldn't do many miracles in that place, his hometown, because of the lack of faith, because of the faithless or the incredulity or the lack of faith of people. It wasn't because Jesus didn't want to, or because he didn't have the power, working at that time.
I think we're seeing that beyond just the youth in the church, con COVID. Like it's a sensitive topic, which is why we won't get into the nitty gritty of it. But there are people that stay at home, but they know the statistics and they know why they're doing it. Then there are other people that stay at home because the person on the news that gets paid $10 million a year to scare you told you that it's dangerous outside. And so us as Christians have to be full of faith and established.
Yep.
And so what we're learning, we're still in person at the church. The people that come to church right now are expecting that they get COVID. They're like, I'm not going to let COVID stop me from coming to church. I know that's my take. And I'm coming to church because there are places like California where I can rant about California for hours, but the point is that California, first they said that you can't sing in church because it spreads coronavirus, and then they said that you can't even do home Bible studies. So us three having a home Bible study is illegal. You can't do that because it speeds up the spread. And so we're here, if you know your statistics, that's great. Stay home, you're awesome. But that's where the lack of faith is fully highlighted. It's fully highlighted. And so us as the youth, like it connects to the church. It's all a big circle,
And like I was saying, the lack of faith, can keep you from seeing, the supernatural that God can do. So even Jesus had, went through that, that he went back to his hometown because the people were so used to him. The Bible, in that chapter says that the people were saying, well, isn't he Jesus? Isn't he the son of Joseph and Mary? Don't we know, his brothers and his sisters? And basically, we were talking in today's language. It's like, hey, that's Ethan. I know his sister. I went to his quinceañera, and we went to school together. It's like, is he the Messiah? Is Jesus? I went to high school with him. It's like,
it's nothing special.
Yeah, nothing special. Why? Because they were so familiar with him that they had no awe, wonder, or nothing was, awe-inspiring, about him. And they just say, no, he's just
well, that's where you let earlier you said to not let your emotions guide you, but you have to guide your emotions.
Yeah.
And so that gets highlighted because that gets highlighted. And sorry, my brain just split in half. I totally lost my train of thought.
We can edit it in
post-production.
yeah.
Well, I'll come back to it. Y'all continue.
Well, yeah, you mentioned about emotions and your decisions, and that's something that I talk about a lot with the youth, because obviously, we know the youth are energetic, they're enthusiastic, they're full of fire and fired up, and that's great. We don't want to lose that. God made us, as humans with emotions, and they have a place. But at the same time, we need to, bring those emotions under the lordship or the direction of the Holy Spirit, where you have your emotions following your decisions, instead of the other way around. Sometimes we let our emotions lead every decision we make, and you and I, the three of us here, sometimes we just feel something that we don't want to, we shouldn't be acting on on true. That, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Some crazy emotions sometimes, I'm driving and somebody cuts off in front of you, and you feel like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And hey, I feel that way, but I shouldn't do it, right?
Right. I just remember it's dangerous to get the world controlling you, because that's what's happening. When the emotions is controlling you, you're letting the world control you. And so the point that I was going to say is, like, when you see kids go on mission trips for the first time, they don't understand how grateful they need to be.
Yeah.
I remember in marching band, they would give us food before the games. And some people would be like, oh my God, it's Chick-fil-A today? Like, didn't we have that last week? And so they'd like throw away their chicken sandwich. I'm like, guys, do you not understand that there are people that make like $30 a year? My grandpa went to a quinceañera in Cuba and gave the birthday girl a 2-liter Coke, and she literally started crying. Oh, wow. And then her whole family started crying. And it took them like 4 months to finish it, 1 2-liter. Like, because it's $2 of a 30-year annual salary. And so here, I brought that up to one of my friends. Like, okay, we'll go give it to them. It's where you're letting your emotions drive you when it should be the other way around.
Yeah. So it's important to, keep that in balance, because emotions have a place. We're humans, and that's the way God made us, and we're wired. But at the same time, we don't make decisions, emotional decisions all the time. We have to also use the wisdom that God has given us. God has given a spirit of, not of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And that's what that sound mind comes into play, that you're making decisions. Sometimes you make decisions because you just feel that way, but then that changes the next day or the next week, So what we want to do is, I'm going to follow not my emotions, but the decisions, make decisions, and my emotions will catch up with those decisions, where I can say, oh, now I'm feeling it, right? I didn't feel it at first when I was making those those decisions,
Yeah.
that I knew it was the right thing to do. I didn't feel it, because a lot of times we just are guided by, well, I'm not feeling it. Sometimes we say, no, I'm not feeling it. But, well, you know what? Sometimes you're not going to feel it, but you're going to have to walk in it, and then your emotions are going to get, caught up with those decisions.
Because it's also important to remember that there are people that wish they could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not feeling it just because, oh, man, I'm in the middle of this series.
Exactly.
I don't feel like
Those
stopping
are
what I'm doing.
emotions, are like that. But, one day you can wake up and you say, you know what, man, I feel so bad. And you may not feel like more than a conqueror, right?
Right.
But God says you are more than a conqueror. Yeah. So what are you going to do?
Even if you don't feel it, you are. The Lord says that you are.
Exactly. Well, you're going to follow what you feel. Nah, I'm not. I'm this victim, I'm not. I'm this and that. Or are you going to believe what God says? Hey, you are, my child. You're more than a conqueror.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is what God is saying. God is saying this, but this is how I'm feeling. So what are you gonna do? Well, I want to make a decision based on what He says, not on how I feel. So that's why you have to think about, hey, I'm not gonna just let my emotions dictate everything or the decisions that I make, especially in those important decisions. Mm-hmm. So if God says I'm forgiven, and I don't feel forgiven, what are you gonna do? Well, I'm not feeling, Pastor. You said that, God forgave me, and when I asked Him for forgiveness, but I still feel like this or shame, but He says you're forgiven, but I'm not feeling forgiven. I know, those are.
You just gotta believe it.
Exactly.
Well, and there are some things the Bible talks about, certain things that your flesh is just not supposed to be able to comprehend.
Exactly.
Like eternity. You'll bring yourself into a nervous breakdown if you really think about eternity. It's just not.
Yeah.
There's just some things
it's
that
so much.
It's where you just have to have faith and just move on with your day. Mm-hmm. And so we've talked about a little bit about balancing uplifting and emotional availability in and out of the class. Do you think we've covered that enough, Jose, on that?
Pretty much, yeah. Something that I will say, is that sometimes youth or anybody that comes to church sometimes isn't ready or isn't in that state to come and receive something. You know what I'm saying? And so for a youth that has never felt the need to I'm going to go to church to receive something from God, then when you do get them in the class, I feel like it's the teacher's responsibility to get them to a place to where they accept Christ, and they feel like they have to make the decision that I want to come find more of God. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's where it's not me telling them, well, you need to pray, you need to all this, you need to obey the Lord, for Him to bless you and, for Him to move in you. I think that there has to be there's a little transition there where the youth truly find God for who He is to them, and then when they come, they're ready to take whatever God wants to give them that time, and then I think that's when the hunger starts, right? So before even getting bored or getting comfortable with what we see on the daily, there has to be first the actual want to know of the Lord. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jose. I think as spiritual leaders, let's say youth pastors, youth leaders, you have maybe a youth small group, or you have certain leadership in your church, and talking specifically in the youth. I think that's very important. Key that you not necessarily that I'm going to. I know how to, turn you into this person. No, all I can do is point you to Christ. But one of the main things or roles that we have is to help our youth be hungry for God, to stir that. Paul, writing to Timothy, his protege, and Paul being this mentor to Timothy, he says to Timothy, fan into flames the spiritual, the spiritual fire, fan into the flames the spiritual gift that was given to you. And basically Paul was saying, hey, you got some embers here, right here in you. And there's already the seed of the word of God. You've heard, you've received it. Don't let it just die out, like fire. When you just let it die out, eventually, you're gonna, it's gonna die out and it's not gonna be burned. But you got that the word of God already in you. So Paul is saying, Timothy, fan it into flames. When you're you're grilling and you're cooking out, you have the charcoal there, and then you're fanning it, because well, at least that's the way we used to do it in the old old school. You get this.
Now you just press a button and turn it.
Exactly whatever you can get, and then you fan it, and you would see that fire, the charcoal, is starting to get on fire, and it's like, yeah, and then you get excited and fan it even more. I think it's the same way in our spiritual lives. We got that ember here, so we need to fan that. So as leaders, youth pastors, you guys, also leading youth ministry, you got to fan that. Help them become hungry for God, because your hunger is going to determine the portion that you get served, right? God is going to say, you're hungry? I'm going to feed you. I'm going to feed you because you're hungry, right? But if you're not hungry, I mean, there's nothing I can do if you're not hungry. They can serve you a steak, juicy, tender, with all this, other sides. But if you're not hungry, all you're going to do is just like, well, I'm already full, You're not going to eat it.
The meh.
Yeah, like that emoji, indifferent. I am not hungry, no matter what they serve you, And that's what Proverbs say. There's a proverb that say, hey, when you're hungry, even something that doesn't taste or doesn't look that good, you're gonna eat it, right? Because you're hungry. Yeah. So they can serve you, the best, food and plate and dish, but if you're not hungry, you're not gonna eat it. But let's say, hey, I got right here Jose, man, he's hungry. It doesn't matter what I put in front of him, he's gonna eat it, right? He's gonna eat Chick-fil-A, Subway, In-N-Out, steak, a Pop-Tart, even if I put in there on the plate, and he's going to eat it. Why? Because you're hungry.
Well,
right?
Whenever you go like 2 days, for example, of just water, no food,
yep.
or you go like 3 days of, you're getting more and more hungry. And so now with COVID, where you're going days and days and days without the convivio, the community of being around people, going to cookouts, Sunday after church, where are we all going?
Getting together with other people.
Oh, okay, I'll meet you at I'll meet you at Fish City or wherever it is that you're going or whatever. When you go so much time without that, our hunger should be very big right now. We should be starving for God. We should be starving for this.
Yep.
But we're not, because we're used to the norm. Some of us are, but you have to channel it. You have to okay, now is the time where I'm going to eat. Now is the time where I'm going to fill that void.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought out that point, because and another reason you don't eat, is obviously because you're not hungry, because you've already full. And a lot of times,
then you can say sometimes you eat the wrong things.
Exactly,
and then it hurts you. It hurts your health.
All of these other things, and you're not eating the nourishment or the what for our souls. So
now's the time we say, "Come on, Pastor."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, preach it.
Come on.
You have an organ,
An organ
playing in the background.
We're gonna take a praise break.
Maybe a button there. But anyways, yeah. So you're so full of other things. Let's say of other, the world, whatever it is that we get full of. So whenever the food of the Word of God comes in His presence, you're like, oh man, I'm already full, right? So what are we filling ourselves, with? What are we eating? So we all are hungry, right? Youth are hungry. And the question is, what are they eating, right? So we need to help them get hungry and get hungry for the presence of God, for God,
And sometimes those youth, like you said, they come hungry, but to them, someone that, let's say, grew up non-Christian, and then their parents found Christ or something, those things that they have been filling themselves with don't seem wrong to them sometimes, and they don't seem like they seem like the norm to them, right? And so when somebody's here preaching to them, talking to them, well, well, you need more of God. There's something more that can fill you. Um, it's I feel like with those kids, it will take more time for them to start cutting out those things in their life to actually come here to be filled with the right things, right? Well, everybody has their process. Somebody could be raised in Christ and always be filled with the correct things, but with youth, of course, some may not, and it'll take time and teaching and disciplining.
Yeah, that's one of our roles, as leaders or spiritual leaders, for youth, is to help them and guide them to be hungry for God. And when we do that, when they're hungry and then they have the food of God, man, they're gonna eat. And when we see them, when we see that happen, see them eating what they're supposed to be eating, right? And in a spiritual way, we know that they're going to get nourished, right? And we're going to see that happen. So yeah, that's true. We need to help them, point them, and tap into that hunger. Hey, fan into flames, that spiritual gift. So change of batteries right here. Yeah. So yeah, fan into flames that spiritual gift. So as leaders, we need to also help them how to fan that, so it can, the fire can, grow even more. Yeah.
And from there, when somebody starts receiving the good things of the Lord and starts seeing themselves as God sees them, that's when people start growing. That's when we start being able to have this youth with all that excitement and power, because they've come up, cutting things out through their process with Christ, and now they've come to a climax to where they're just on fire for God, Yep. And once they're there, that's when we can have youth serving. That's when we can have youth becoming ushers, becoming Sunday school teachers,
sharing Christ with their friends, at a school.
Yeah, even if it's not here.
Conversation. Yeah, exactly. Just being that the light, wherever they go. Yeah, that's true.
It's a very good point. So we're talking about getting your fire back. We've talked a little bit about don't go through the motions. Do you have any more points on that you want to make on not going through the motions?
Well, one way that we can get our fire back, it's like you said, one is don't go through the motions, right? Because sometimes we feel like, man, I don't feel it like I used to feel it, like last year or a few months ago. I felt like so close to God, or I felt different, right? I was feeling it, right? And one thing is to step back a little bit and say, okay, am I going to church? Am I going to youth? Am I doing the things because I'm just doing them, right? Am I reading my devotional just because, oh yeah, I'm just reading. Now I'm glad you're doing it, but are you being intentional, right, about it? So you have to step back and look at it and say, hey, am I doing this really, engaged? Really, fully aware of what I'm doing, even when sometimes, it takes me, effort to, focus, engaged, but, or I'm going through the motions, I'm just in this routine, in this monotony of doing things, the same, every day. So you get stuck in this, in this cycle that sometimes we just go through the motions, Has it ever happened to you that sometimes you drive and you get home and you're like, man, I don't even remember, when I turn here and there, but you're home, right?
So sometimes I'm driving, and I realize I'm thinking about something. I'm like, wait, I'm driving a car, and then I zone out, and then it's like, oh my God, I'm on the highway, because you just get locked into driving, and you're just like, okay, here we go, and then I'm like, wait a second. If I move my steering wheel like 3 inches, like it's over. Like, you have sometimes you space into things, and you realize what I'm doing is serious. I need to not space out. And that, that's with your car, with eating, like you can keep eating, and then you're like, wait, hold on a second. This is like my eighth round, in the last 2 hours. Am I really hungry?
You go through the motions, right? Yeah, and sometimes we may get in that motion, spiritually speaking, that we're just doing it because we're doing it. We get in this cycle, and it happens to all of us, right? That's why we need to look at it and say, okay, step back and say, okay, I want to be intentional, and I want to engage, and be fully aware of what I'm doing. So one thing, how to get that fire back, if you're saying, I don't feel it, or, oh yeah, I felt it, I felt like I was closer to God, or that fire in me, and somehow I don't have it anymore. Well, you can have it back. You can get that fire back. One, like we talked about, is, hey, ask God, give me a hunger for you. Fan into flames that fire in you, that the spiritual gift, and be eating, the right food.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
That can be good or bad.
Exactly. Give me snacks. I want a snack. But anyway, yeah. So don't go through the motions, right? Because that could be, a way that we're just doing things because we're just doing it. We're not thinking about it. We're not even engaged. We're just going to church because that's what we do. I don't even realize it, right?
There's been times where, specifically, I think I brought this up. No, I didn't. I haven't brought this up here, but I've told somebody that one Sunday I came, maybe not as prepared to play my parts on my guitar as other Sundays, and I think I was in that, well, it's my responsibility. I play, I sing. And so I didn't get them as prepared, or maybe I felt too comfortable, But after praise and worship was done, and, pastor had come up, I closed my eyes and I prayed, and I said, well, God, I'm sorry I didn't play as well as I felt I didn't play as well as I could have. But I felt that I didn't hear nobody talk or nothing, but I felt in my spirit that, well, why are you playing? Are you playing just to play well in front of people, or are you playing to praise?
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt
that got you thinking.
Yeah.
Said, what am I doing? Am I just going through the motions,
Yeah,
leading
so
worship?
Like Monday, like why aren't the songs out? And then Friday, it's like, oh man, Sunday's in 2 days, and they start practicing, and then it's you get into that every single week.
Yeah. So we've been, you're doing things, and you might get into this cycle that you just go through the motions and you don't even think about it. It's just doing it, but there's no real intentionality in it. So that's what we have to think, look at it and say, okay, am I doing things intentionally, or am I just going through the motions? And that applies to youth, to adults, anybody. You want to be intentional, you want to be engaged. And I think one of the things about our current youth generation is that we need to get them engaged, because they're engaged. There's so many things that they can engage, especially now with so many things digital. They're engaging, and we got to make sure that we're engaging them also in the things of God, in the spiritual things. And that's basically what we want to do. Hey, I want you to be fully aware, fully engaged in seeking God, seeking the presence of God, because when you do that, God is going to surprise you. He's going to say, okay, you're hungry? You're hungry, Jose? You hungry, Ethan?
Take the silverware, unroll the napkin, put it on your lap.
Exactly.
Get your silverware out.
You came ready to eat, I'm going to feed you. God is not going to say, well, you're hungry, but I don't think I'm going to feed you today, right? I'm going to let you starve a little bit more, right? No, he said, if you're hungry, I'm going to feed you. And I'm going to feed you according to your hunger. If you're very hungry, man, I'm going to give you a big plate, right? Yeah. And according to that, the level of your hunger, your
faith too, kind of going back to Jesus's town.
Exactly. How much you want it, right?
They didn't want it.
How much you want it. And when God sees someone who says, God, I don't, I'm tired of this and that. I mean, I've watched binge watch all the series that I can watch and all of that. I really need something that feeds my soul, that gets me, to the core of my being and my spirit. And God says, okay, you're hungry? I'm going to feed you, right? And because you're not going to go hungry with me. So if you're really looking for me, you're hungry for my presence, you're hungry for me, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be hungry for my presence, right? And that's one of the examples that we have that with David. David, he wasn't a perfect king, he wasn't a perfect person, but yet he's one of the main characters in the Bible, right? That we refer to often. But because he was so hungry for God, he was hungry for His presence, and so that's one of the things. Don't go through the motions. Look at what you're doing. Think about being intentional, and be engaged. Be fully aware, engaged in what you're doing, and because we could just be in autopilot and just like, yeah, that's what I'm doing because I'm what I'm doing. That's what we do, but we have to be intentional about what we're doing. Not just going through the motions. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, a lot of good points there. We always make the joke in the podcast, like, I'm going to come back and listen to this later. But and I can't take notes because we're... So there's get excited about the right things.
Yeah.
We've touched this on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's another pastor that I'd like to have on that I've told Jose a little bit about. You know him better than probably any of us, Pastor Ricky Tejada.
Mm-hmm.
He preached the other day saying to do the right things for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you hear like, okay, I'm going to do the right things for the right reasons. But when I heard him say do the right things for the right reasons, I listened to the whole thing. Yeah. And it is something that it's a good, I don't think it's a coincidence that we have get excited about the right things. I think it's something that we all need to be very focused on is why are we doing what we're doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another way that we can, that and us, we can get our fire back is when we get excited about the right things. Like we said, one of the points, get excited about the things that matter, right? The things that matter to be excited about. So many times we get excited about, other things, superficial things or just little things, which is, it's fine.
Or that YouTube notification from the YouTuber that you watch, or
I
don't know if there are any Stradman fans out there, but I get the little Bugatti Veyron shopping, and I'm like,
oh,
I pull out my phone, so stop what I'm doing.
Yeah, you get excited about the new Nikes, dropping on whatever day, and like, yeah, man.
Both of you have on some very nice shoes today.
Oh, talking about drip,
I've got on my new.
New Balance, yeah.
I've got on my New Balance, my 501s. You can't go wrong with them.
Hey, we got the same socks. Look, Nike
okay,
socks.
Yeah. And we're doing something right here.
I got
Jose's got his Nike socks too.
Nike over here, Nike Air Max. Yeah, man. That's right. That's, what's good, You know what's up. Yeah, that's right. But anyway, we can get excited about, a pair of sneakers, a pair of jeans, a T-shirt, things that are, material. We get excited. Nothing wrong with it. Hey, I got a new a new iPhone. Oh, man, that's great. Get excited. But when we talk about the spiritual things, about the things of God, and we don't get excited, then I think that, man, that there's something out of place there.
Yeah, ask yourself some things there.
Yeah. Why do I get more excited about material things than the spiritual things of God? Now, I'm not trying to shame or or make anybody feel condemned or anything. No, we all get excited about getting nice things, and that's okay. I don't have anything against it, but we gotta now think and look at our lives. Okay, do I get excited about the right things, about the things of God, or do I get more excited about something that I got in Amazon, right? Oh man, I can't wait to for Amazon to deliver Prime my 2-day
I don't know if y'all, but when COVID first started happening, all the the roll of COVID memes, and there's the one of like somebody with their blinds and they're like looking for the Prime van to come by.
Looking for the Prime, exactly. You get so excited.
Like I get I don't know if y'all have, but like there's the ring for your front door where like if there's motion you get like there's motion in the front door. I'll be checking it and I'm like, yes, the Prime guy's here.
I see the box, the picture.
Yes, I'm like like I get in there. Thank you for dropping off my phone case or whatever it is that they drop it off.
I know. Sometimes we get excited when we're in the kitchen, and we have our Alexa, right there, and all of a sudden you see the ring that is yellow, and then the little notification sounds like, and then you got your delivery, it gives you the notification that it's been delivered. You're like, oh man, that's great. Let's go get it. Let's go to the door. So we get excited.
Tripping all the way to the.
Yeah, and that's nothing wrong with it. I ordered things in Prime and all that. I get excited. But
But you have to remember, get excited about the right
Exactly.
things.
When we get excited about the right things.
Like when you hear someone's testimony, when you hear that someone recovered from COVID.
Yeah, when you hear someone, that, hey, this person was struggling with shame or with suicidal ideations, with anxiety, and now they're doing better because God is doing something in their lives. Man, you get excited about that too.
Because we get caught we get caught up in the thing of like, like when there's someone that's like a notorious drunk or drug addict that comes to church, and then they get like a year clean, and you find out, oh, they're a year clean. There are sadly the Christians that are like, oh, we'll see when they fall.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, oh, we'll see when they fall back into it, and that you're not going to be active by doing that. That's exactly how we don't be active, and that's something that all kinds of people do.
Instead
or when
like
when the pastor announces the new year vision.
Yeah.
We said we were going to do that last year.
Yeah, you should be excited about that.
I thought we were doing this last year, and then we didn't. We should be like, oh, that's awesome. Let's get it done.
What's the big deal about the new vision? Well, we do this every year. You get into that mentality, that mode, so you don't get excited. But then you're getting excited about other stuff. So the excitement is there. You just gotta remember, hey, you gotta put that in perspective and in the right place. Get excited about the right things. Hey, this guy, instead of saying, well, let's see how when that all goes away, he'll fall back into the same things. Hey man, get excited. It's like, man, praise God.
especially now in COVID, like we've had families with the church that come back, and all the church, round of applause for the people that thank God they came out of COVID healthy. And then there are the people that are like, well, what about everybody that they talk to? Are they all sick? Oh my God, I'm going home. There are the people that do that, and then there are people that are like, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you got healed. Let's use your testimony into something else.
So one of the dangers about that, is that when we don't get excited about the right things, and we get excited about other things, is that we tend to be, indifferent, lukewarm, kind of like laid back. And we just don't get excited, enthusiastic about those things that really matter.
It's like, oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, exactly. No big deal. Same.
We knew that was gonna happen.
Same old. Same old. And it's not. When God changes a person, when God is doing something in a youth life, in a marriage, in anything, in anybody, we should be excited about it and say, you know what, man, that's awesome, man. That makes me excited about, because God is real, God is moving, God is doing great things in people's lives, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about to hear the vision for this year. I'm excited about, hey, the youth are planning to do this, or hey, I'm excited about supporting the our youth ministry with this podcast. It's not just like indifferent about it, right? Or so lukewarm, so not like meh, that emoji, no big deal, So that's one of the things that we gotta guard ourselves against. Say, you know what? I'm gonna get excited about the right things. When God is doing something, instead of thinking, well, it's no big deal. I see baptisms every month in my church, so
it's that quarter. Every
quarter
we do baptisms.
Yeah, they do baptisms every Monday.
Is this September?
Is
this September?
Yeah,
we knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah, I've seen baptism before. Instead of like, man, that's a person, a life, a soul that God is doing something in their lives, and they made that decision, that took that step to go public with their faith and being baptized. Man, that's something to be celebrated, and get excited about, right? Yeah. So you see how sometimes we just get so used to those things and we just don't get excited, right? But the excitement is there. So we got to check ourselves and say, okay, am I getting excited about the things that really matter? Now, remember David, when he was bringing the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, and back to Jerusalem, and he was so excited, it's all the priests and the Levites and all the people coming, and celebrating, and he was dancing, and then he took his royal clothes and he was just dancing and praising God, being so excited because the ark of the presence of God was coming back. And then his wife Michal was looking, from her, balcony, and he looks at him. he looking down, he's like, what is he doing? Why is he, you know, doing this so undignified, right? Why is he, you know, being so ridiculed, ridiculing himself, in front of these people. He's the king. He should be more dignified and more honorable, and he looked down on him because of what he was doing. David was excited about the right things. His wife was looking down. He's like, "What are you doing? It's just the ark of the ark of the covenant is coming back. No big deal, and you should be more dignified." And David, replied when his wife said, "Hey, you're the king. You should be more dignified. Why are you doing this, right?" And David replied, he said, "Hey, I'm gonna do this and even look more undignified, because it's about God and the presence of God. The ark of the presence of God is coming back. So I'm gonna celebrate, even if you look down on me. I don't care. So get excited about the right things, because the way you respond, matters to God. The way you respond matters to God. So God can be doing something great in someone's life, or in youth, or in your church, or in your community, and you're like, no big deal.
Yeah, the youth sometimes don't. I feel like they don't see how great God can be. Mm-hmm. They don't see that that God has been the same, and all that we read of God is the same God today, and that He can still do something great in you personally, but also in the people you love. People that we pray about. I think I kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, if you remember it. But so we talked about getting excited for the right things. So, we've talked about, I'm going to kind of wrap it up, but not, we're not going to stop at a halt. We're just kind of going to land it. We talked about going all in for God. We talked about how an energetic youth make an energetic church. We talked about why this is a very important topic. It's not basic. We talked about the contrast between the United States and our culture and other cultures. Balancing uplifting and emotional availability in and out of the class. How do you come into class? And then we talked about getting your fire back. If you've heard those first few points and you're like, nah, man, I've just lost it, then we've learned that in order to get our fire back, we need to not go through the motions. We need to get excited about the right things. Yep. And this last point, I think, is a perfect way to close it, is to remember who it's for.
Yes, exactly. Basically, when we're doing things, and especially when we're already into a maybe doing things for a little while, you kind of tend to forget, the reason why you're doing it, or, why you're doing it. And I think it's very important to remember, hey, why am I doing what I'm doing, right? And I think there's a book, there is a book, and then also in YouTube, you can look it up, Simon Sinek, I think that's his name. And he has YouTube videos and books about the why, talking about why. The most important question is why. Why are we doing what we're doing, right? Why are you doing this? Yeah. Like, why are you guys doing a podcast? Yeah. Is it just to be cool and, we're having a podcast, we're doing things in YouTube? Well, cool, but there's got to be a reason that goes beyond that, right? Yeah. It's not just, we're in YouTube, right?
For us, our main thing was Sundays. We'd get into class, and then, the first half is a little dry because it's the middle of the morning, and you're like, And then at the end, we're in the middle of a conversation, and somebody comes in, and they're like, hey, it's time for tithes and offerings. And both of us on the music team have to dip. And so all the youth just come in, and they're all, in mid-train of thought, and that's how they leave. So I was like, we should start a podcast and talk about the stuff that the youth are So we tell the youth on Sundays, what stuff that we never finished talking about that we can talk about on a podcast. Yeah. So we got dating advice, we got demons, we got ambition, and here we are talking about being active.
Yeah. So the why is not, we do this because we just want to get a lot of views, right? Well, yeah, we're going to get a lot of views, but that's not why we do it, just for views, because you can do crazy things, do something dumb, record it and upload it, and man, you get millions of views. You'll be famous.
The more views we get, the faster we're monetized.
Exactly, yeah. You just upload something dumb, and you do something dangerous or crazy and put it in TikTok, man, you get a lot of views. So yeah. So that's not the point, that's not the why. The why is, okay, we're gonna get a lot of views, and hopefully, and but the why is that, hey, we want to help. We want to help the youth. Think about this, and we want to, provide some content that they can watch and learn and grow closer to God. It goes beyond just the views and how many likes and comments and subscribers you can get in YouTube. So when you answer that question, it really, takes you to the core, right? And as Christians, we also gotta ask that question. Especially. Who you're doing it for, right? And when you remember that, it's going to help you get that fire back whenever we get stuck in a rut spiritually. You remember, say, wait a minute, who am I doing this for? Is it to impress the other youth? Like, yeah, I'm here, I'm all spiritual. Yeah, I'm chatting away here in the live chat, emojis, firing away emojis.
Amen.
Amen. Amen, amen, emoji, fire.
Last Sunday I was like, come on, Pastor.
I know, right? That's not why you're doing it, right? I'm doing it because I love God, because I love Jesus, right? It comes down to the core, right? Jesus loved me first, right? Even when I was, this sinner with no way to go, he still loved me and rescued me. Man, how can I not do this for him, right? This is the core, and this is not for to impress my pastor, to impress, my leaders, or, and the youth, I'm going to go, look, these great, youth,
if I start this podcast, I'm going to get a full-time position on staff.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to give me the next step, or, oh man, I'm going to impress that girl because, oh man, I know she's going to like, if I look like I'm all into it, so I'm impressing her, I'm doing it for her, right? You got to go to the core, who are you doing it for, all right? So when you say, you know what, I want to do this for Jesus. I'm doing this for him, not to impress, the girl that I like, that cutie over there, or, or to impress my leaders or anything like that. I'm doing it because I love God. It's for him. Yeah. So it completely puts you back in perspective, and everything, regains meaning. It's like, yeah.
And something I've seen, and something I've taught is that when you serve God, you serve people, because God isn't here for us to, treat like a king or pick up or however it is you treat a king, but you serve God by serving people. The
people
light
of the
of God.
church. We've talked about how the church isn't a building.
Right.
You're taking the church everywhere that you're going.
Yeah, and even if you serve here on the stage, or if you serve in the back, or wherever it is you serve, what you're doing is for other people. Yeah. Does that make sense? And the Bible says that above everything, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so serving God is shown in preaching to people, in serving your pastors, serving the church, by leading into worship, teaching a youth class, whatever it is that you do here at church. You're doing it for God, but it's through you for his people.
Yep.
Sorry, that's distracting.
That's the alarm. Anyway. That's the alarm. Okay, guys. Bring it to land the plane.
but anyway, y'all were both making very
No, yeah, and exactly. And one of the things that I see as a challenge for young people is that the opinion of their peers, of other people. One of the things that I see as a challenge, for young people, is that the opinions of other people, their peers, their friends or classmates, or people around them, it weighs a lot. It weighs a lot on them. So they
it's
know
a weight. It's a weight that they can't.
exactly.
They
They
hold.
know what is right. They know what they should do. They know some the right thing. They know that they love God, but they sometimes the opinions and the what other people think, um, they put more weight into that. That peer pressure that they sometimes don't do what they know in their spirit and that they should do. So they know and say, well, this is for God, but then they get so overwhelmed by the opinions and the and everybody else is thinking or what they might say about them, right? Their reputation or what their image or whatever it is, that peer pressure that keeps them from getting excited, getting their fire back, not doing things and going through the motions, and they forget that, hey, I'm not doing it for you, even though you may think that I'm extra, I'm cringy, I'm like, man, you're crazy, or man, no thanks, but
It's not for me.
exactly. But guess what? It's not for you.
Uh-huh.
It's for God.
And it's very simple.
Exactly. So if I were doing things for you, of course I would take into consideration and I would say, yeah, man, what do you think? What do you think of me? Right? What do you think of what I'm doing? Tell me, am I doing right or wrong? Do you like this or not? But it's not for you, man. This ain't for you. This is for God. So when you get that, in the right place, then the opinions of other people fall and say, to the backseat and say, that doesn't matter. It's not that important anymore. But it's hard because of course you don't want to be singled out as like, man,
It does take a lot of courage.
Exactly.
Individually to move
you
like
have
that.
to
Definitely
take
courage
yeah.
and initiative.
Yeah, you have to be courageous to say, I'm not doing this for you, to impress you, to make you like me, to be accepted or fit in. It doesn't matter if you give me the likes or not. I'm doing it for God. And if you give me thumbs down, it's all right. As long as I get thumbs up from God, man, that's what's gonna, that's gonna say, yeah, you're doing the right thing. So we have to battle that to, put that in the right place and say, you know what? It's not for you. What I'm doing, what I'm saying, is for God. And when we get that perspective, we remember everything we're doing or saying is unto the Lord. If I'm serving here at the church, the youth ministry, doing the podcast, right? Whatever I do outside, with my friends, classmates, my family, I'm doing it as unto the Lord. That means it's not for them, it's for God, right? He is the one I'm trying to.
It's so simple, but it's also
please,
very
right?
important.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So one way to get your fire back is to remember who you're doing it for. It's for God. And that way we say, yeah, it has that meaning instead of, well, I'm going to play what do you play?
The guitar.
Well, I want to play the guitar because nobody else to do it. Ethan needs me to help him, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm just doing it because that's what we do on Tuesdays, right? Or Wednesdays or Thursdays, right? On Sundays, yeah. No, yeah, I do that on Sundays. But because I'm doing it for God, it becomes, it's meaningful. It gives me that purpose, right? To say, yeah, it's for Him, right? So I don't go through the motions. I just don't be, I'm not indifferent. And I get excited and because I know who I'm doing this for, right? And instead of, the girl I like is not even coming to church because, staying at home, man, doesn't feel the same. Well, yeah, you may wish that girl would be there or your friends or whatever. But, man, if they're there or not, I'm doing this for God. Yeah. That's what's going to, really keep you with the right motives in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, I think that pretty well sums it up, that we need to remember that we're doing this for God. Mm-hmm. And once you remember that and once you follow these points, I really do think that being active will be the easiest thing you've ever done and the best thing that you've ever done. Because all these other topics we've covered, dating advice, ambition, demons, you have to be active to exercise any of them. Mm-hmm. So, well, assuming y'all don't have any more points, thank you, Rolando, very much for joining us today. I'm still kind of surprised that we were able to pull it off. Thank you for moving around your schedule to make this happen.
Thank you.
And this was a really good podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your wisdom, your word. It's great to hear another point of view. Mm-hmm. It's great to hear someone else's, what they see in the youth, from behind the pulpit or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for making time for us.
No, thank you guys for inviting me, and you guys are doing a great job. You're doing something that is going to make a difference in a lot of lives and people who watch this podcast. So keep doing it. Keep going strong, and remember who you're doing it for. Yes, we want to get a lot of views. I pray that you get a lot of people watching this podcast. Is it in YouTube and
YouTube and Facebook?
And Facebook
under the church account.
I pray that you get a lot of views, but it's about what God can do through this. With this effort that you're putting into. So good job, Ethan, Jose, and your pastors. Also for supporting you and. I pray that God can use this, can use to speak in someone's life and say, you know what? Yeah, I want to be hungry for God. I want to get excited for the right things. I don't want to go through the motions. I want to remember who I'm doing this for, and really get this fire back in my life. And if you felt like maybe you have lost or that the fire, or maybe that fire has died down or it's just barely hanging in there, I want to encourage you, and I want to really speak, life into you. That God is not mad at you. He's not disappointed at you. He's right there, and all you got to do is fan into flames that little ember in you and say, God, I want to be hungry for you. Give me that hunger for you. And when you do that, God is going to feed you. He's going to give you that food. He's going to say, hey, because you're seeking me, it doesn't matter in what place or what stage of life or part of, or what place in your life you're at right now. You may be feeling like close to God or far away from God. He can, embrace you, and he say, hey, you're seeking me, you're hungry. Yeah, welcome. Let's grow. He can feed you. He can, ignite or reignite that fire back in your life. So no matter where you're at, what you've done, when you come back to God, He's going to, give you this fire back in your life.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us, and I hope you all took notes like I will be whenever I rewatch this. And,
you're welcome.
Y'all have a good night.